She looked at him and said, "You don't belong here." She humiliated a janitor in front of everyone as if he were nothing. But the next morning, something inside her company quietly crumbled. Systems started malfunctioning, and no one could explain why, until that very man she had fired walked in. And at that moment, everything everyone knew about him began to fall apart. If this story resonates with you, please leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. A gray morning settled over Charlotte, clouds pressing low against glass towers, turning every reflection into something colder, sharper, and just slightly unreal. Selena Voss, 41, CEO of Valewood Urban Development, stood at the head of the boardroom, composed, precise, a woman shaped by years of climbing out of poverty and never allowing weakness to show again. Her navy suit fit like armor, her voice even more so. "Projected returns exceed 12%, she said, eyes scanning the board. Around the table, executives nodded. Approval here was quiet, almost sacred. Near the far wall, Elijah Kane, 52, a janitor in a worn gray uniform, moved slowly with a mop. Tall, reserved, his face carried the stillness of someone who had learned to exist without being seen. Years of something unspoken had softened his voice but sharpened his silence. He kept his distance, careful not to disturb the rhythm of power. Selena turned slightly, gesturing toward the centerpiece, a detailed architectural model of Aurora Heights. Glass towers rose in miniature perfection, each angle calculated, each surface reflecting ambition back at itself. "This," she said, "is the future of this company." Elijah shifted his grip on the mop, just a fraction too far. The metal handle brushed the edge of the model. A faint scratch. So small it barely existed unless you believed perfection was everything. Selena froze, then turned. "What did you just do?" The room tightened instantly. Conversations died mid-breath. Elijah looked at the model, then at her. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. But apology didn't land where anger had already taken root. "That model represents months of work," Selena said, her voice no longer calm. "Do you even understand where you are?" Elijah didn't answer. Not because he couldn't, but because he chose not to. Selena stepped forward, her control slipping just enough to become visible. She grabbed the glass of water from the table and, in a sharp motion, splashed it across the model. Water spread quickly, seeping beneath the glass, blurring the printed designs into distorted shadows. "There," she said coldly. "Now it's ruined." Silence followed. No one defended him. No one challenged her. In rooms like this, silence was loyalty. Elijah stood still as water soaked into his sleeve. He felt the weight of every eye on him, not curious, not kind, just distant, like he was part of the furniture that had suddenly malfunctioned. "I'll clean it," he said. "No," Selena replied immediately. "Just leave, and don't come back to this floor." A pause, then a nod. Elijah turned toward the door, his reflection briefly stretching across the glass wall, thin, distorted, almost erased. Halfway out, he stopped, not long enough to be noticed, but long enough to see. His eyes moved across the model again. Not the damage, not the water, the structure. Something shifted behind his calm expression. Something precise, almost mathematical. "They're building it wrong," he murmured. So soft it barely existed. The door closed. Inside, Selena had already turned back to the board, her voice steady again, rebuilding control word by word. "Let's continue," she said. Behind her, the presentation screen flickered. Just once. A thin distortion ran across the image, like a crack forming beneath polished glass before everything returned to normal. No one reacted. Except Camila Reeves, 29, Selena's assistant, observant by nature, the kind of person who noticed patterns others dismissed. Her eyes moved from the screen to the closed door. A quiet unease settled in her chest. Something had shifted, and whatever it was, it hadn't ended when Elijah walked out. Outside, the clouds thickened, pressing lower against the city, like something waiting to break. Morning arrived without warmth, the city still wrapped in low clouds, as if Charlotte itself had chosen to hold its breath. Inside Valewood Urban Development, something invisible had already begun to collapse. The first sign was silence. Emails stopped sending. Screens froze mid-command. Financial dashboards blinked out, replaced by error codes that crawled across monitors like insects in the dark. Within minutes, the entire building shifted from quiet efficiency into controlled panic. Selena Voss stood in the executive control room, posture still straight, but her eyes sharper now, searching, calculating. Control had always been her greatest strength, but this was something she could not command into obedience. "What's happening?" she demanded. Noah Mercer, 34, the chief technology officer, stepped forward. Tall, polished, with the confident smile of someone who had built a career on presentations rather than foundations, he adjusted his glasses nervously. Years ago, Noah had risen quickly after delivering a high-profile system upgrade, though most of the architecture he inherited had never been fully understood by him. "It's a system-wide failure," Noah said. "Possibly ransomware. We're trying to isolate the breach." Behind him, the IT team worked frantically. Fingers struck keyboards in rapid bursts, like rain against steel. Screens flashed with cascading errors. "Restore the backups," Selena ordered. A pause. One of the engineers, Priya Nair, 31, a systems analyst known for her precision and quiet resilience after surviving a previous startup collapse, spoke without looking up. "Backups are corrupted, or inaccessible." The room tightened. "Then rebuild access," Selena snapped. "We're trying," Noah said quickly, though his voice lacked its usual certainty. "But the core system isn't responding." "Core system." The words hung in the air like a warning no one wanted to understand. Down on the lower floors, the chaos hadn't fully arrived yet. Elijah Kane moved his mop across the hallway, steady, unhurried. The building's hum had changed subtly, but enough for someone who had once listened to systems the way others listened to music. Voices echoed faintly from an open stairwell. "Astergrid is completely down." Elijah stopped. Just for a moment. The name lingered in his mind, not as a problem, but as something deeply familiar. Astergrid. His eyes narrowed slightly. Not fear. Recognition. He leaned the mop against the wall and walked toward the stairwell, each step measured. Upstairs, panic had begun to surface. "If we don't recover within the hour, we lose the Aurora contract," Noah said, now pacing. "Investors are already calling." Selena didn't respond immediately. Her gaze was fixed on the central monitor, where the system status remained frozen like a heartbeat that refused to return. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar press against her chest. Uncertainty. The door opened quietly. No one noticed it first. Elijah stepped inside the control room, his gray uniform out of place among tailored suits and glowing screens. Noah turned, irritation immediate. "This is a restricted area." Elijah didn't answer right away. His eyes moved across the monitors, absorbing the chaos in silence. Then he spoke. "You're not dealing with ransomware," he said calmly. The room stilled not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Noah frowned. "Excuse me?" Elijah stepped closer, ignoring the tension building around him. "Your system isn't locked. It's looping." Priya looked up for the first time. "What do you mean looping?" she asked. Elijah pointed to a line of code flashing repeatedly on the screen. "That process shouldn't be calling itself twice. It's triggering a cascade." Noah scoffed. "This system is far more complex than you think." Elijah met his gaze not challengingly, but with quiet certainty. "I know." A beat passed. Selena studied him now, really looking for the first time. Not at the uniform, not at the position. At the man. "Let him talk," she said. Noah hesitated, then stepped back, if only to prove the point. Elijah moved to the keyboard. His hands hovered for a second like a musician remembering an old song. Then he began. The keys responded under his fingers with a rhythm that didn't match panic. It matched memory, precision, understanding. Commands appeared clean, deliberate, unfamiliar to everyone else in the room. The monitors flickered. One system node came back online. Then another. Priya leaned forward, eyes widening. "He's bypassing the corrupted layer." Noah's expression shifted confusion, giving way to something closer to disbelief. On the screen, a system log scrolled past. For a brief second, a name appeared within the architecture header. Architect. Elijah Kane. The room went completely silent. Selena felt something drop inside her, like a realization arriving too late. Elijah didn't look up. He was already working on the next layer. And somewhere beneath the restored systems, something else remained hidden. Watching. Waiting. The system didn't just come back online, it breathed. Lines of code flowed across the monitors like veins reconnecting, pulsing with quiet life as Elijah Kane worked without hesitation, without doubt. Each command he typed felt less like repair and more like memory returning to its rightful place. Selena stood a few feet behind him, arms folded at first, then slowly lowering as if her body itself was beginning to unlearn certainty. "How do you know this system?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Elijah didn't turn. "I don't," he said. A pause. Then, almost gently, "I built it." The words didn't land loudly. They settled. And yet, they changed everything. Noah let out a short laugh, too quick, too defensive. "That's not possible. This architecture is over a decade old. It was developed by Elijah Kane," Priya interrupted softly, her eyes fixed on the code header still visible on the screen. Silence again. Noah's smile faded. Elijah continued typing, as if the conversation no longer required his attention. Systems stabilized one by one, access points reopened. Data streams reconnected, not chaotically, but with deliberate structure like a city lighting up street by street at dusk. Years ago, this had been his language. And it still was. Selena felt something unfamiliar move through her chest. Not guilt, not yet, but something closer to displacement. The room she had controlled so completely yesterday now felt rearranged. "Why weren't you listed in any current records?" she asked. Elijah stopped typing for the first time. Just for a second, then resumed. "Because I stopped existing here," he said. The simplicity of it cut deeper than explanation. From the far corner, Harold Bennett, 67, chairman of the board, had entered unnoticed during the chaos. A man with silver hair and a reputation for surviving 3 economic crashes, Harold had built his instincts on watching people, not numbers. And right now, he wasn't looking at the screens. He was watching Elijah. "I remember your name," Harold said slowly. "You were part of the original infrastructure team." Elijah gave a slight nod. "You left during the restructuring," Harold continued. "I was removed," Elijah corrected. Not bitter, just precise. A quiet shift passed through the room. Everyone knew what restructuring meant. Numbers over people. Margins over memory. Selena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That restructuring had happened before her tenure, but the philosophy behind it she had embraced without question. "And after that?" she asked. Elijah glanced briefly at his reflection in the darkened edge of the monitor. "After that," he said, "I took what was left." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The silence that followed filled in the rest lost position, lost identity, the slow erosion of recognition until a man became invisible inside the very building he once helped create. On the screens, another system layer came back online. Priya exhaled softly. "He's rebuilding the route access pathways manually." Noah said nothing now. For the first time since anyone had known him, he had no explanation ready. Selena stepped closer. "Why help us?" she asked. Elijah finally looked at her. Not with anger. Not with pride. Just clarity. "I'm not helping you," he said. "I'm protecting what I built." The words landed heavier than any accusation. Selena felt them settle somewhere she couldn't deflect. Behind them, a terminal window flashed a deeper layer of system logs emerging as the restoration progressed. Elijah's expression shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly, but enough for Harold to notice. "What is it?" Harold asked. Elijah didn't answer immediately. He scrolled further, deeper. Patterns began to form irregular access points, security overrides triggered at specific intervals. Not random. Never random. This wasn't an external attack, Elijah said quietly. The room stilled again. Noah straightened. "What are you talking about?" Elijah pointed to the log entries. These permissions were altered from inside the system. Someone disabled the fail-safes. Priya leaned in, scanning the data. Her face tightened. "He's right. These aren't breach patterns. They're internal overrides." Selena's voice dropped. "You're saying someone here?" "Yes," Elijah said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The implication spread through the room like cold air seeping under a door. Trust fractured. Certainty dissolved. And beneath the restored systems, something darker revealed itself. Not chaos, not accident, but intention. Elijah's fingers hovered over the keyboard once more. "There's still one layer locked," he said. "Whoever did this, they're still connected." No one spoke. Because now, the problem wasn't just the system. It was the people inside it. The room felt colder, though no one had touched the thermostat. Numbers filled the screens, now not chaotic anymore, but structured, exposed, undeniable. Where there had been noise, there was clarity. And clarity, in places like this, was often more dangerous than failure. Elijah Kane stood beside the central terminal, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. He did not look like a man delivering judgment. He looked like a man finishing a task. "These logs don't lie," he said quietly. No one interrupted him. On the main screen, layers of system activity unfolded timestamps, override permissions, access keys. Each line was a footprint, each command a choice someone had made. Selena Voss stood at the head of the table, but for the first time, she wasn't leading the room. She was listening. "Follow the pattern," Elijah continued, scrolling through the data. Security protocols were disabled in stages, not all at once, carefully, intentionally. Priya Nair leaned closer, her brow tightening. "That would require high-level access." "It did," Elijah replied. The cursor blinked once, then stopped. A name appeared at the end of the trace. Noah Mercer. The silence that followed was heavier than anything that had come before. Noah's breath caught, just slightly. He recovered quickly, straightening his posture, forcing composure back into place. "That doesn't prove anything," he said, his voice controlled but thinner now. "Those credentials could have been compromised." Elijah turned to face him. "Not confrontational, not aggressive. Certain." "Then explain why the overrides were executed manually," Elijah said. "At times when only one administrator was logged in." Noah opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, he had no words ready. Harold Bennett stepped forward, his presence quiet but commanding. "Answer the question, Mr. Mercer." Noah's confidence fractured. Not shattered, but cracked enough to reveal something beneath. "I was correcting inefficiencies," he said finally. "The system was outdated, slowing us down. I streamlined the fail-safes." Priya's voice cut in, sharper now. "You removed them." Noah didn't deny it. "I adjusted them," he insisted. "The system was over-engineered. We didn't need all those layers." Elijah's gaze didn't shift. "You didn't understand those layers," he said. The words weren't loud, but they landed with precision. Noah's jaw tightened. "I understood enough." "No," Elijah replied. "You understood the surface, not the foundation." He gestured toward the screen. "Those fail-safes weren't redundant. They were adaptive. They changed based on system load and threat detection. Removing them didn't simplify the system." A brief pause. It exposed it. The truth settled into the room like dust after a collapse. Selena felt it most of all. Not just the mistake. The pattern. She had trusted Noah because he looked the part. Because he spoke the language of confidence. Because he fit the image of control she believed in. And yesterday, she had dismissed the man who had actually built everything. Her chest tightened not with panic, but with something slower. Recognition. Harold's voice broke the silence. "Mr. Mercer, you're suspended pending full investigation." Noah didn't argue this time. He simply nodded once, the weight of consequence finally visible in his posture. Years of performance had carried him far, but not far enough to outrun truth. Security escorted him out quietly. The door closed behind him. And with it, something else closed too, an illusion the company had been living inside. Selena remained still for a moment. Then, slowly, she stepped forward. Not toward the screen, toward Elijah. The room watched. Because this part couldn't be automated. This part had no code. Selena stopped a few feet in front of him. For the first time since anyone in this building had known her, she didn't speak immediately. She searched for something not control, not authority. The right words. "I was wrong," she said. The sentence was simple, but it cost her more than any decision she had ever made. "I judged you based on what I saw," she continued. And I didn't see anything clearly. Her voice didn't break, but it softened. And yesterday, I disrespected you. The room held its breath. Elijah looked at her not with triumph, not with resentment, just understanding. The kind that came from having seen this pattern before. People only seeing value when it saved them. I know, he said. No anger, no comfort either. Just truth. Selena nodded slowly. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something real. Behind them, the system screens stabilized fully. Data streams flowed cleanly again. The building, this vast machine of ambition, had survived. But it wasn't the same machine anymore. Because now, everyone knew what had almost destroyed it. And who had saved it. The building did not celebrate its survival. There were no announcements, no applause, no speeches carved in polished language. Instead, change came quietly like dust being cleared from corners no one had looked at in years. Valewood urban development continued to function, but something essential had shifted beneath its surface. Systems ran smoother, yes, but more importantly, eyes began to linger where they once passed without notice. Selena Voss stood alone in the boardroom late one evening, the city of Charlotte glowing gold beneath the setting sun. The same room where power had once felt absolute, now felt honest, less polished, more real. On the table sat the Aurora Heights model, repaired, but not replaced. The scratch remained thin, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Selena reached out, her fingers hovering just above it. She didn't touch it, not this time, because now she understood what it meant. Not a flaw, a memory, a correction. Behind her, the door opened quietly. Camila Reeves stepped in, holding a tablet. She had changed in small ways, her posture straighter, her voice steadier. Watching everything unfold had reshaped her understanding of what mattered. The revised protocols are ready, Camila said. Hiring policies, internal reporting, system oversight, all aligned with what you requested. Selena nodded. And the review board? Active. Independent this time. A brief pause. Good, Selena said. No pride in her voice. Just responsibility. Downstairs, the atmosphere felt different too. Conversations were quieter, but not out of fear, out of awareness. People listened more, looked longer, questioned what they used to ignore. Priya Nair now led the system integrity team, her calm precision guiding decisions that once would have been rushed. She had learned the cost of overlooked details and now ensured none were dismissed again. Harold Bennett spent less time behind closed doors, more time walking the floors, watching, not to control but to understand. And Elijah Kane. He no longer moved like a shadow, not because he demanded attention, but because attention had finally learned how to find him. His role had changed, though his presence hadn't. Officially, he was now Director of Systems Architecture and Recovery, a title that sounded like recognition, but felt to him more like responsibility returning home. He still walked the same hallways, still paused at the same windows. But now, when he spoke, people listened. Not out of obligation, but because they had seen what silence had hidden. In a smaller office on the lower floors, a new hire adjusted her badge nervously. Lila Grant, 26, a junior systems engineer with sharp curiosity shaped by years of being underestimated, looked up as Elijah entered. "You're Mr. Kane?" she asked. Elijah nodded. "I read about what you did," she said. "I mean what you built." Elijah studied her for a moment. Not her resume, not her title, her questions. "Then don't read it," he said gently. "Understand it." Lila smiled, uncertain, but inspired. Because for the first time, she wasn't being told what she lacked. She was being shown what she could become. Later that evening, Selena walked through the hallway alone. She passed employees who now met her eyes not with fear, but with something steadier. Respect, perhaps. Or maybe just honesty. At the far end of the corridor, she saw Elijah standing near the glass wall, looking out at the city. For a moment, she considered turning away. Old habits. Then she walked forward. They stood side by side, separated only by reflection. "The system's stable," she said. "It always could be," Elijah replied. A quiet beat. Selena glanced at him. "You didn't have to come back." Elijah nodded slightly. "I didn't," he agreed. "Then why did you?" He looked out at the city again, where lights flickered on one by one, like signals in the dark. Because things that are built wrong don't fix themselves, he said. Not just systems, not just companies, people. Selena let the words settle. This time, she didn't rush to respond. Because she had finally learned some lessons, didn't need answers. They needed time. Elijah turned and walked down the hallway, his steps quiet but no longer unnoticed. Conversations slowed as he passed not out of awe, but recognition. Not of who he was now, but of who he had always been. And in that golden light, stretching across glass and steel, one truth remained steady, undeniable. Some people are overlooked like dust on the floor, until the day the entire building depends on what they've been holding together all along. In a world that moves fast and judges even faster, the quietest moments are often where God is working the most. This story is not just about a janitor and a CEO. It is about how God places value in people long before the world recognizes it. Elijah did not arrive as a hero. He did not demand respect. He simply carried what God had already built inside him, and when the moment came, that hidden strength became the very thing that saved everything. Sometimes God does not send us what we expect. He sends us what we need, wrapped in forms we are too quick to overlook. In your daily life, you may have been underestimated, ignored, or made to feel like you do not belong. But your worth is not defined by people who cannot see clearly. Your worth is defined by what God has placed within you. You may feel like you are at the lowest point right now, but that does not mean you are not building something meaningful in silence. And one day, in a moment no one expects, that hidden work may become the reason everything changes. If this story spoke to you, share your voice in the comments. Have you ever been judged too quickly, like Elijah? Share this message with someone who needs encouragement today. You never know how God might use you to bring light into someone else's life. And subscribe to the channel for more stories about courage, faith, and quiet strength that change lives. May God bless you, guide your steps, strengthen your heart, and remind you that you are never unseen, even in your quietest moments.
If you enjoyed this story, don't go away. Drop a comment, tell us where you watching from, and subscribe to Hidden Black Tale for more.